Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we convene our third of 5 sessions on science and consciousness. Today, looking at mediumship and telepathy. Yesterday, we looked at remote viewing as aspects of human capacities that are very seldom discussed in academia or scientific circles, but which are emerging with such incontrovertible force as a legitimate area of both scientific inquiry, but also human potential that Humanity Rising is very pleased to be able to promote this. I had an experience yesterday that I want to bring in, which touches on this. Yesterday, Claire and I went over, and I had the experience of greeting my new grandson, 5 days old. I'm in California now. I flew back from Washington, where I'm working with the New Paradigm Institute on UAP disclosure, as you all know. And yesterday, for the first time, I got to greet and hold my little grandson. And what I want to just bring out about that is that his mother is a meditator and a yoga practitioner. And while she was pregnant on 2 separate occasions, she went on a 10-day retreat, meditative retreat, just carrying her child in her womb and just bonding with him through the spiritual practice of meditation. And each day since he's been born, she's meditating 2 or 3 hours a day. And you can feel in little Charlie, which is his name, a certain calm. And I reflected on that as I was holding him. He was asleep, occasionally yawning, stretching his little arms and legs as little infants do. And I was reflecting on what humanity would be like if all of our children were brought into this world in a meditative state. And as they were learning whatever language that their parents speak, they were also learning the language of the spirit. They were encouraged to recognize their dreams as they emerged. They were encouraged to engage in mental telepathy. And then when they had extrasensory experiences, they were encouraged to take these as not only real, but as seminal. And through that, our children began to understand the mother tongue, which is not English, it's not Greek, it's not Chinese. The mother tongue is the language of consciousness. The mother tongue is that faculty that all of us need to learn to engage in intelligible communication, not only with each other across space and time, but with other species, with extraterrestrial beings. But it all starts not with some esoteric art form. It starts with a basic understanding that at the heart of everything that is that which is invisible, and that which is consciousness. And that consciousness, as it takes on different frequencies, different geometric patternings, algorithms, manifests itself in the material world. And we humans have lost that connection back to the primordial mother tongue. And it's my hope that little Charlie will learn that mother tongue. Because as humanity begins its ET moment, the ambassadors to the extraterrestrials won't be the diplomats from the US State Department. The people that will be communicating with the extraterrestrials and other species will be the little Charlies of the world, which are all of us, as we come into this extraordinary moment in human evolution. And as we teeter on the brink, the precipice of self-destruction, because we've so egregiously forgotten who it is that we most essentially are. And so the program that we're providing, particularly this week, is not something that is marginally of interest if you have the time. It's something, in my view, in our view, that is a national security issue. All of us urgently need to learn the mother tongue. And as we do that, a whole new way of communication that moves through space and time will become available to us. And humanity will return to its very beginning and know it for the first time. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to Humanity Rising. And in this spirit, it's my great pleasure to welcome my very good friend and colleague, Peter Merry, who convened this program. Peter, always a pleasure. And I turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I mean, what you were saying reminded me of like this one thing that really stuck with me that Daz said yesterday. He said, look, if we want to be able to communicate with these beings, we have to stop thinking of it as us and them.
Yeah.
So we have to not just think of it as, but experience it as like one consciousness that is expressing itself as me, is expressing itself as this being potentially from another planet. And it's only when we kind of get beyond that, those distinctions, these definitions that make us seem separate, that we'll actually be able to establish that kind of consciousness. And I thought that was really important. And then I realized, we have this whole language problem because we call them aliens, which which by definition means something different. So embedded in our language is the whole problem that we are facing
Exactly.
in terms of our ability to be able to communicate. So yeah, and congratulations on your grandson. As somebody said in the chat, it's lovely to see you glowing as you talk about it. So day 3 of our Science and Consciousness Week. So in day 1, you may remember, we were looking at some of the history of the science, the research into consciousness, and how that 28 years at Princeton unfolded and what they found. And yesterday went into the whole art and science of remote viewing, or the craft, as Daz called it, one of the professional remote viewers who was on the call, which was fascinating. For me, I learned a lot about, I was always thinking it was remote viewing. They were remote viewing to a place, with coordinates and things. But as they described, they were remote viewing both through space and through time. And in this world of probabilities in the future, and seeing like the probabilities of certain things emerging, and Daz with his 65% accuracy on the kind of prediction, in a way, of events into the future. But what was most, I think, impressive about it was the worldview that had developed in them through that experience, this real felt sense of interconnectedness, and quite comfortably, talking about the mystical side of that work, even though they've been working in business with these approaches, interest from both government and the business side. So somewhere there are people who are not just practicing it, but who obviously recognize the value of these approaches. And I feel that's only going to grow from now on, particularly in the context of the disclosure of the UAP phenomena and things. So having looked at the kind of science and the research and the background to it, looked at how we kind of view outside of time and space things that are going on elsewhere that, through our kind of material senses, as it were, we shouldn't be able to see, into a slightly more proactive subject. So how do we actually communicate with each other through these fields of consciousness that seem to connect us up? And I think it's probably the topic that is going to get people most interested in this field of science and consciousness when they start to, first of all, when they start to hear and accept the fact of what the US government is saying, which is, well, extraterrestrial life exists, has been on the planet. And then when they start to say, and their main means of communication is telepathic, then people are going to want to know, well, how do you do that? What is this, and how do you do it? Because we want to play, we want to communicate as well. The question is whether they will want to. I saw a lovely cartoon was sent through the other day, which was like some folks looking up at a UFO saying, hey, come and play. And then there was a little speech bubble coming out of the UFO going, no, we're good. So question is whether they'll want to communicate with us. But that whole kind of realization that there is I guess the acceptance and understanding that there is a way of communication beyond our material forms of communication that we all have the capacity for and could be developing with each other. But there's also essential if we want to start to engage with life forms from other planets. And by the way, is also the sense or the capacity we develop if we're wanting to engage with plants or with animals, as we discussed yesterday as well. So there's a level of communication, beyond the human, as it were, more broadly, that we start to explore here. So to help us in this exploration today, we're very lucky to have Dr. Patrizio Tresoldi, who has spent many years researching this as part of the Science and Consciousness Research Group at Padua University in Italy. And he was telling us just before we started, apparently one of the oldest universities in the world, and through him doing some of the most leading edge research. So you're obviously a brave man, Patrizio, to have continued to do that work in a very well-established university. Also a very brave man, by the way, to come on Humanity Rising and agree to share your thoughts with us in English, which I know isn't your native tongue. So much gratitude for that. We found Patrizio's bandwidth isn't 100%, so bear with us if there are any kind of glitches on the tech side. But set our intentions for it all to go well, and we'll have a greater chance of it. And then joining Patrizio, we have Dr. Krista Stanley, who many of you will already know, who is an evidential medium, also a graduate, of course, of the Wisdom School at Ubiquity University, and has joined us the last couple of years at the Science and Consciousness event. And so we'll be exploring also the relationship between the mediumship and telepathy, what's what, and what do we learn from both of these practices about communication beyond our normal senses. So Krista, thanks for joining us too. So what we thought we would do is start off with, Patrizio has a little presentation for us. So we'll start off with that, with the slides. And feel free to introduce yourself a bit more than I did if you would like, Patrizio. And then there are some videos that Patrizio would like to share with us too. And given his bandwidth, I'm going to share those videos. So he'll just come out of the presentation, then I'll share so that we can watch the videos, and hopefully that'll work okay. So Patrizio, over to you.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. I hope that my information can interest you. I'm mainly an empirical, curious people, and even I was involved in the academia. Most of my investigations were done within Padova University. Sorry for the intrusion. Here the title of my presentation, and you see my websites where you can find all my output that you can download for free. So I invite you to exploit all my products for free. Okay, let's move from here. Okay. Before discussing the empirical evidence related to telepathy in its different forms, we must agree on a definition that probably most of you know well. And it is the official definition of telepathy after the Greek history. Feeling, perception, affliction, experience is the purported vicarious transmission of information from one mind to another. It is the critical point, without using any human sensory channels or physical interaction. Okay, nothing new, but it's important taking account this definition. Okay, we can start with some common phenomenological experiences that probably most of you have had. I don't know if it's a rare experience or if it's a more continued experience of probably you hear from other people. These are three examples of spontaneous experiences, telepathic experiences. You can read, but I don't know if you can read the slide. I can read it for you. One experience, say that when I answer the phone or receive a letter, I always seem to know beforehand who is trying to get in touch. For example, I hadn't contacted a distant cousin for some years. I kept thinking about her, so decided to send her a letter. But she sent me one before I'd head off to the post box. There must be more than a coincidence. It's a classical example of telecommunication telepathy. Another example is the dream telepathy. Is the excerpt. I dreamed of a close friend of mine working with me in a beautiful garden. We were attracted by a special rose with a wonderful perfume. When I woke up, this friend found me having the same dream. That's a classical example of telepathic dream. Another classical example is a connection during the working day, and the excerpt is the fourth. In the middle of my working day, I felt a strange emotion between sadness and nostalgia associated with one of my best friends, lasting until evening. When I got back home, I received a phone call from another friend informing me that my best friend had a car accident and was already in an hospital. These are only three examples, but there are many that probably you know well. The problem with this spontaneous experience is the following. These are random coincidences or real telepathic communication. This is the crux of the problem, because our mind tricks us frequently, so we cannot say for certain if these are common spontaneous coincidences or a real telepathic. This is because the empirical investigations are crucial, are really important to discriminate between these two interpretations. And what will follow are a series of empirical demonstrations that try to disentangle these two situations, real random coincidences or telepathic communication. The requirements for empirical investigation is that the participant must be isolated sensorially. In other words, they cannot communicate in any way via electronic devices or using the normal way of communication. And the second aspect that is important to demonstrate that something telepathic happened is that the number of correct information received must surpass those expected or that can be obtained by chance. So we must take into account that there is always a chance to have such a kind of experiences, but in particular situation, controlled experimental situation, it's possible to determine if this detection of correct information are above the chance expected. And now I start with one of the situation is the telecommunication telepathy. Here above there is a recent review of all studies done particularly by Rupert Sheldrake, that probably most of you know well. And we analyzed 26 experiments, 26. And I show the results of some of them, but before showing some results, it's important to see, useful to see a short video clip, the famous video clip that I don't know if some of you already watched it, but it's useful to describe a sort the experiment protocols. I leave my presentation, okay, and I hope some can launch the video clip that lasts 5 minutes, so it's not so long.
Great, thanks, Patrizio. Yeah, I'll see if I can share the video here. Oh, wait a minute. Sound.
Telepathic experiences. And if you look at the modern world, despite all discouragement, most people believe that they've had telepathic experiences. And interestingly, the most common kind of telepathy in the modern world is precisely one that's grown up alongside technologies. In other words, telepathy connected with telephone calls.
So many people tell stories of telephone telepathy that Dr. Sheldrake devised a test to see whether someone could predict who, out of 4 people, was calling them. The probability of being correct by guesswork alone was 25%.
We've now completed 1,000 of these trials, and the average success rate is 42%, which is hugely significant statistically. People certainly aren't right every time, but it's way above what you'd expect by chance.
So, is telephone telepathy real, or is it just a figment of the imagination? We brought one of the most successful girl bands of the 80s to London to find out. The Nolan sisters are one of the closest families in showbiz. At the height of their fame, they spent months on the road together, and most of them still live within miles of each other.
I'm Rupert Sheldrake.
But how well will they do in the telephone telepathy test?
Now, could you tell me all your names in order, please?
Yes, I'm Denise Nolan. I'm the most intelligent one here. I'm Maureen. She's just Maureen.
Hi, I'm Linda, and Denise is a liar.
I'm Colleen.
Colleen is the youngest, and I'm Anne. I'm the eldest.
Why do you say that?
Because I want people to say I look good from age. Maybe you don't.
You don't.
Not really.
The first stage of the experiment is to decide which of the sisters will be the receiver.
So 4 of you are going to stay here. One of you is going to go to the hotel and try and guess which of the others is phoning. So we've got to pick the person to do that.
It's got to be Colleen.
Colleen is nominated by her sisters because she's the youngest. And while she's driven a mile away to the other location, Dr. Sheldrake allocates each of the other sisters a number between 1 and 4. For each trial, a throw of the dice will determine who will be the caller.
So we're going to start now with the first one. I'm going to throw the die. 2. There you are, Maureen. So you've only got 2 minutes.
Maureen's first up, and the rest of the group must leave the room to allow her to focus.
Let me think about her.
When the phone rings, Colleen will have to say who she thinks is calling before she picks up.
Right. Maureen. Maureen.
Yes!
Oh, yes! Yes! Thank God for that. Thank you. Lovely talking to you.
Bye.
Bye.
I knew she'd get it.
Yes. Bloody hell. Oh, sorry.
But that could just be coincidence. Next up is Anne, the only skeptic among the sisters.
Denise.
No, you're wrong.
With 4 sisters to choose from, if it's purely guesswork, Colleen should expect to be right 25% of the time by the end of the experiment.
Think of your favourite sister. The most talented one.
I'm not getting anything now. I don't want to be wrong. Linda. Linda.
Yes!
Yes!
Good girl. You're not thick.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, bye.
Thanks for calling. Bye.
Bye. Yes.
That's good, isn't it?
Halfway through, and Colleen is a long way ahead of the 25% expected by chance alone. Anne's number has come up 4 times, but for the previous 3, Colleen has guessed wrong.
Anne.
Yes! Hooray! I knew you loved me, really.
3/4 of the way through, and Colleen's hit rate has reached over 40%. According to Dr. Sheldrake, this indicates there's more going on than simple guesswork.
Maureen or Linda, I think. Linda.
Yes!
Yes! Oh my God!
I'm so impressed.
I'm scaring them now. They're backing out the room.
They should never have gone in there with you, love.
Fantastic. Thank you. Bye. Wow.
Colleen's final score is 50%, one of the highest of over 1,000 tests conducted by Dr. Sheldrake.
Anyway, well done. I think that was great. Thanks very much.
I enjoyed it. Well done, that girl.
Cheers!
Okay, you can stop. Okay. This is a nice presentation of the basic requirement for the telepathic element. This is one of the 6 different protocols that I will show you. And you noted that the people who interact must be isolated in this case, and their it's a correct identification must be above the chance levels that it was 25%, and the final was 40%. So you must not expect 100%. This probably could be the case with actual participants, but what's important for experimental investigation is to obtain a correct identification above the chance. Now we can pass to another experiment protocol, is the one that's probably well known, is the dream telepathy, when we have a sender, in this case this person, and a receiver that is sleeping in the first say, experiments. They were in a particular lab dedicated to investigate the condition. And the modern day, the receiver are in their home, and so when they wake up, they must retrieve information sent by the sender. In this case, people are well separated sensorially, and so the correct identification must be a bonus as expected. And here below there is a summary. Technically is a meta-analysis of all experiments done from 1966 to 2016. So you can imagine how long is this line of investigation. This is the experimental protocols. The third one is telepathy in an environment. Gaspel is a particular condition when the receiver, the person that must try to receive the information must be isolated visually and acoustically in order to filter out all the external sensory information. To illustrate better the condition, we can see the second video clip that is very short. So please launch the second video clip.
Grass, lawns,
bright yellow,
two sort of concentric.
The sender is this one, top right. The target is this one, bottom right, the visual information. And this one is the receiver. It's connected visually and acoustically. And this one is the experimenter that control all the situation and record what the receiver is saying.
Got the idea of a duck flying through the air or speaking to me. I don't think that duck's speaking to me. I don't think he is. He can't be. He's wearing... It's ridiculous, but there's a duck talking to me, and he's kind of wearing glasses, wearing boots, like Wellington boots. It's kind of a strange thing. This duck, yeah, he's got Wellington boots and glasses, and it's one of those upturned tails, like a triangular upturned tail.
Okay, you can stop the video. Okay, and here this is the title of in a paper that summarized 40-year investigation related to this experiment protocol. For a total, if I remember well, 130 experiments. So imagine how much investigation we have disposal for those interested in this kind of phenomenon. Let's proceed with the telepathy remote viewing. I heard that yesterday, if I correctly, you got a presentation of the remote viewing phenomena. One of the protocols in remote viewing is that there is a a sender, this one, dedicating something, a photo or a real environmental location. And here there is the researcher that try to connect with the sender. They are isolated sensorially and from other conventional communication means, and the receiver try to describe what this sender technically is called outbounder is seeing. Okay, it is a typical protocol, one of different remote viewing protocols, and this is an example of what the receiver can obtain from the target image, and even in this case, the correct identification must be above the chance level. Usually, the receiver confront his information with at least 2, 3, or even 4 alternatives, and he or she must identify the correct target. Okay, this is another protocol, and here there is a sort of summary of the best performances obtained by selected participants with the 4 different telepathic protocol. Here, telecommunication telepathy, telepathy, dream telepathy, and remote view telepathy. Here is the percentage of chance. So in this case, for example, for telecom telepathy, average the best participants are able to obtain 13% advance with obviously there are, I would say, a maximum. But you can, if you compare the performance, are also similar with all 3, with the Gansfeld telepathy and the dream telepathy. But what we have observed is that remote viewing telepathy with a partner obtain the results 24% above chance. This is not a trivial result. In fact, as you probably listening yesterday, there are many practical applications of this technique for many different purposes. Okay, let's move to another line of investigation, telepathic investigation, that I call physiological telepathy, because in this case, what we measure are the brain activity of the 2 distant partners, depicted in these 2 pictures. One partner, as they usually call the sender, receive auditorily or visually information, and the other partner, isolated in other rooms, try to detect but unconscious, in the sense that we are interested if the brain activity changes under the stimulation, visual or auditory stimulation, reproduce in the brain of the distant partner. This is telepathy connection, mostly unconscious, because usually the participant don't detect the alterations of the activity. This is another line of investigations, always physiological. In this case, the signals are the detection of the changes in the skin reactivity. This is a galvanic response, an electrical signals on the skins. They must detect or record other, for example, the respiratory rhythms on other of a distant twin. You can imagine why they try to investigate twins, because the hypothesis is that the more genetically and emotionally bonded a participant, the more the signals might be enhanced by our apparatuses. And we are at the sixth, are the mediumship telepathy. In this case, contact is not with the living person. For example, the person who required a mediumship session for a son, for events, for a deceased person, they are isolated from the medium, and medium is asked to try to connect with the deceased person in order to give information from him or her in order to be identified by the persons that required the sessions. Technically, it's called the sitter. The sitter is the person who requires a mediumship consultation. In this way, there is a summary of all experiments done from 2001 in December 2019 for a total of 18 experiments. This is a recent one done by our group, research group, and the level of blinding is, I try to explain, is that, as I said, the medium, the person who is able or declared to be able to contact the deceased person is not has any contact with the person who required the consultation. So the medium don't know nothing about who is the person that required the consultation. So this is not possible any communication between the medium and the person who required the consultation. So if is able to retrieve information, correct information for a very specific the deceased person, we must conclude that the medium was able to connect mentally, telepathically with a deceased entity or person. Okay? I summarized the protocols, but I hope that if there are further questions for clarifying this protocol, I'm here. But what is important is that the medium cannot obtain information from even telepathically from the person, the sitter that requires the consultation. So the only remaining source of information must be somebody else. In this case, the deceased person. Okay, let's move to the last telepathy with us. The only one we studied, there are very few experiments, honestly, with these experimental protocols, but the only one who studies this kind of interesting telepathic connection is Rupert Sheldrake. And here I can show you a short video clip that will illustrate the classical experimental conditions. Okay, let's move to the last video clips that should last 5 minutes, more or less. Unfortunately, the audio is in German, so please read only for the non-German people.
Zusammen mit ihren Eltern versucht sie herauszufinden, ob ihr Hund JT tatsächlich immer weiß, wann sie nach Hause kommt.
JT, good boy. JT.
Ihre Eltern, bei denen der Hund während ihrer Abwesenheit bleibt, haben das Phänomen seit Jahren beobachtet. Pam selbst war zuerst mehr als skeptisch. Erst die Experimente mit JT konnten sie überzeugen.
We tried to fool him for 2 weeks 2 Wochen lang haben wir JT richtig auszutricksen versucht. Ich habe meinen Eltern weder erzählt, wohin ich gehe, noch wann ich zurückkomme. Ich bin mit dem Taxi, mit dem Fahrrad, mit dem Auto von Freunden oder auch zu Fuß zurückgekommen. Es war eine Zeit intensiver Forschungsarbeit. Jeden Tag in der Früh habe ich mit Rupert Sheldrake telefoniert und wir haben vereinbart, welches Experiment wir heute durchführen.
Wir wollen es jetzt genau wissen und machen die Probe aufs Exempel. Ein Experiment mit 2 Kameras. Eine Kamera wird im Wohnzimmer der Eltern aufgestellt, in dem auch JT bleibt, wenn Pam das Haus verlässt. Um vergleichen zu können, was Pam und JT im selben Moment tun, werden die Timecodes der beiden Kameras auf dieselbe Uhrzeit gestellt. Der zweite Kameramann begleitet Pam und unsere Redakteurin. Es ist 11 Uhr Vormittag. Das Experiment beginnt. Weder die Eltern zu Hause noch Pam wissen, wann wir zurückkommen werden. Wird JT auch unter diesen Bedingungen reagieren und Pam am Fenster erwarten? Wir begleiten Pam in das nahegelegene Städtchen Ramsbottom. Nur wir kennen den Zeitpunkt der Rückkehr. Selbst der Kameramann, der mit JT zu Hause geblieben ist, weiß nicht, wann wir zurückkommen werden. In der Zwischenzeit daheim bei Pams Eltern. JT liegt nach wie vor bei den Füßen von Pams Mutter und zeigt keine Zeichen von Unruhe. Es ist kurz vor 13 Uhr. Die Hälfte der Zeit für das Experiment ist bereits abgelaufen. Das wissen allerdings nur wir. Denn, wie schon gesagt, den Zeitpunkt der Rückkehr halten wir nach wie vor geheim. Weder Pam noch ihre Eltern zu Hause wissen, wann wir zurückkehren werden. Ob der Versuch gelingen wird, ist nach wie vor offen. Niemand kann voraussagen, ob JT unter Testbedingungen wie immer reagieren wird oder ob Kamera und Scheinwerfer ihn irritieren. Nun wird es ernst. Es ist 10 vor 3. Unsere Redakteurin gibt das Zeichen für den sofortigen Aufbruch. Die Kamera zeigt die aktuelle Uhrzeit. Es ist 14:50 Uhr und 7 Sekunden.
Right, oh, we've got to go back now. Right, so I've got to...
We have to get a taxi.
Right, okay.
Where can we get a taxi?
You know where we were filming before?
Yeah.
I noticed there was a taxi right there, so you could knock on the door there. Yeah?
Okay, let's go.
So, right, go and get a taxi.
Yeah.
Um 14 Uhr, 50 Minuten und 33 Sekunden, 11 Sekunden nach unserem fernen Signal zum Aufbruch, geht JT ans Fenster. Das Experiment ist gelungen. Allerdings wissen wir das zu diesem Zeitpunkt noch nicht. Um es für den Hund noch schwieriger zu machen, haben wir uns schon vorher entschieden, mit einem Taxi zurückzufahren, damit JT das Motorengeräusch von Pams Auto nicht erkennen kann. JT rührt sich zu Hause nicht mehr vom Fenster weg, während Pam im Taxi auf dem Weg zu ihm ist.
We're going home now, Pam. Do you think of JT now at the moment?
Dabei spielt es keine Rolle, ob Pam an ihn denkt oder nicht. Genauso wie in den Experimenten, die sie für Rupert Sheldrake mit ihm gemacht hat, lässt sich JT auch diesmal nicht irritieren. Erwartungsvoll sitzt er am Fenster, als das Taxi vorfährt. Zugegeben, uns selbst hat das Ergebnis verblüfft. Erklärungen können wir Ihnen dafür keine anbieten. Wir erheben allerdings auch nicht den Anspruch eines wissenschaftlichen Experiments. Wir können Ihnen nur zeigen, was wir mit eigenen Augen gesehen haben.
Okay, you stop the video. And I almost finished with my take-home messages that I hope I have convinced you that with almost 7 experiment protocols, there are sufficient empirical evidence that telepathy is the real phenomenon, and that for improved detection of telepathic information, it's necessary an emotional bond between the persons, the partners, and a non-ordinary state of consciousness. This means that we must control our inner mental activity in some way, isolating from external information, and trying to concentrate as in the remote view, with the remote view protocol and so on, in order to get these flammable signals, but they are sufficient for showing us that telepathy is a real phenomenon. Obviously, this statement is not accepted by mainstream academia, but I think that if people with open mind, skeptical open mind, read all the evidence, I think that they say idea that this is an impossible phenomenon, they might change their idea. It's all open for all your questions, for clarification, and for the interpretations of this phenomenon, for defining who we are in essence. Thank you for your attention.
Great. Thank you so much, Patrizio. Thank everyone for your intentions for the tech and everything to work out fine, which I think it did. Yeah, very compelling evidence, and lovely the way you kind of categorize the different kinds of telepathy. Very useful. Krista, so maybe it'd be good, I mean, feel free to introduce yourself a little bit if you want, but to tell us first, what you mean when you talk about mediumship. Just give us a little definition from your perspective, maybe a little bit about the work that you do in that field, and how any of it might relate to what Patrizio was talking about, and your kind of conclusions, as it were, about, in a way, the nature of reality based on your experiences. And I'm sure, given questions we've had yesterday, people would be quite interested to know how you got into that profession as well.
Well, the difference with what Patrizio was discussing, telepathy primarily is mind to mind, human to human. Remote viewing oftentimes is my mind to a situation here somewhere on the earth. Daz yesterday was speaking that it definitely moves beyond that. And for me, the practice of mediumship is when you are connecting, I refer to connecting to the field. So I'm not necessarily doing psychic work, which is a telepathy sort of exchange. I am moving into a wider sphere of information to access information. I practice something called evidential mediumship, and I do this because I'm a skeptic. And even though I have had a skill set from childhood that accommodates this sort of exchange, I never really believed it. And so evidential mediumship is where I receive no information from the sitter, and the only reply that a sitter can make to information that I'm bringing through is, yes, I understand, no, I do not understand, or I wouldn't know that information. And that's it. So it's different in that way, because I am expanding into a field, and I wouldn't be able to identify what that field is. Is it just discarnate beings? Is it animals who have passed? Is it a tree in my front yard that's dying? Is it other intelligences? That has never been defined for me. When I work as an evidential medium, there's somebody sitting in front of me and they want to connect with somebody who they knew in this lifetime. And so that's a very specific intention. And so the point of that exchange of information is to bring through information about somebody who they would know. So sometimes people are open to moving beyond that and just receiving information usually applicable to their life in some way that would be beyond that something that they have struggled with and need information about. I came to this, my studies were, and my dissertation was on transcends thinking. That was a Will Tagle term. And what I wanted to know is how we have aha moments. How do we receive information that we have no acquired knowledge, no experiential understanding, and this information can drop in? There's a lot of documented phenomenological stories of people receiving this sort of information. And for me, in the dissertation, I had a dream about entanglement, which I didn't understand. And it provided the information for me to understand much more fully this idea that actually Jung and Pauli had put forward. So that's a little history of my, when I was doing the dissertation, somebody had said to me, you should research mediums because they're accessing information just, there's just like instantaneous, and it's highly accurate, and it's specific to a particular person, and it's verifiable. And so that's what I did. I went and I researched mediums, and I was just blown away by their technical skill. And so I started to practice it, thinking I'd be able to write about it better if I practiced it. And then through the practice of the discipline, I realized that it was something that I had been doing my whole life.
Wow, thanks, Krista. Do you kind of referring to something you mentioned? Do you have a feeling, or maybe it doesn't matter, but whether you're communicating directly with a particular entity, or are you just asking a question to the field in which all information is stored anyway? See what I mean?
It's both. I don't know where I'm going, and I'm not even really going anywhere. What I'm doing is I'm relaxing my need to know. I'm relaxing. I think Luigi yesterday had mentioned this idea of letting go the left brain need to categorize and organize. And you have to, in order for me to do it, I have to recognize that I don't know anything about the sitter in that particular situation. Or, you just have to release, and you become, as you practice that, you become skilled at receiving information. And then you have to develop the ability to recognize the difference between you thinking up that thought and it coming from somewhere else. I don't know where it's coming from. That's where I say it's a field, it's the oneness. And it's not necessarily identifiable. I'm not like, somebody's not giving me a name or a universe where they're speaking from. What does happen is we are sensate beings. We feel information through our body as well. not just through our mind. And so there is a component of vibration or a frequency where you can sense the veracity of information. It's almost like you're a tuning fork, and you can feel the information come in.
I mean, you were listening to the talk yesterday as well. Would you say the kind of inner state and the kind of skills needed, whether it's remote viewing or mediumship or telepathy, are they basically the same, or are there differences?
I think it's a skill. And it's, and this is where, when Jim brings up this idea of like, how do we learn how to do this? I think it was Luigi had said, there's an unlearning process. And that's when I say I'm releasing my rational reasoning mind temporarily. And that it's a skill of learning how to do that. And I have a story. When my mom was dying, it was the second day of morphine. It was clearly her last day. And the home aid person was with us. And my mother really liked this home aid person. And so it occurred to me, as I was sitting there with my mom and the home aid woman, that I should tip her. My mother was a very big tipper. It was a real big part of her world, was tipping. So I thought, oh shoot, I didn't even think, okay, great, I have to do that. And so in my mind, I think of a number that I think is appropriate, a dollar amount that I think is appropriate. Okay, fine, that's great. Okay, I'll make sure I do that. And then a few seconds later, after having decided on the amount, I hear a different amount, a much larger amount, twice as much. And I was struck because I knew that that was not my thought. I did not think that. And I'm looking at my mother saying, are you talking to me? Like, are we having a conversation here? And so I say, okay, great, 5, whatever the dollar amount was. And then I agree to it, and I say, okay, fine, I'll go to the bank tomorrow. I'll get the money. I know that Tiange will be here tomorrow. I'll be back. Okay, that's great. Perfect. That'll work out just great. And then I sit for a second and I hear that will be too late. So it's like, oh my gosh, like, okay, so I write a check, like I have to do it now, I guess. And 5 minutes after I give Tiange the check, my mother passes. So it was a profound experience for me because it was, and I've been practicing mediumship at that point for about 8 years. It was so clear that I was not thinking those thoughts. And so that is a big part of the skill set, is because you have to be able to distinguish your thinking from this information flow that could be coming in that is separate from your thoughts. And that is a skill. It's a practice. And for me, the way that I did it was through evidential mediumship, because that provides you the opportunity to get verification about the information that's coming through.
David and Daz both said yesterday, from completely different experiences, right? So Daz grew up immersed in this whole world of kind of psychic stuff, and David had only been doing it 5 years, having had a kind of spiritual awakening. But they both said the key was self-belief. Does that resonate for you as well?
Well, Lynn Probert, one of my tutors, she has said, the first thing when you're starting to train is you have to trust your communicator, the information coming through. The second thing is you have to trust the information. And then the third thing is you have to trust yourself with the information. And that's exactly what they were speaking about. You have, and through with the remote viewing, again, you have this very strong interaction of verifiable corrections from what you are thinking you are perceiving. And hopefully you're not thinking, you're just perceiving, and the actuality of the situation. And that's just, I think, an incredibly strong tool to learn how to communicate in this way. You are learning a different way of receiving information. We're not accustomed to receiving information in that way.
Patrizia, I mean, in your research, what have you found about the conditions people need to create to be effective in this kind of work in themselves?
I think that Krista is very well. If you think about the different protocols, apart the telepathy with animals, in all other protocols, necessary to, let's say, distinguish very well, and is our mental activity, our mental information, and the information coming from others. For the practice of meditation, open-minded, I don't know the technical term and so on. The practice of meditation is very in this case, because the main aim of all traditions, meditation traditions, trying to control your mental activity, and second step, eliminate your mental stuff and try to experience what remains. For the telepathy information, you eliminate all your contents, or you're able to eliminate or at least recognize what is a product of your mind, or what product from another source. This is the basic. It's that some people, probably Krista, is in a sort of innate ability, but for most people like me, it's necessary a lot of training. But I think that training with passion, with enthusiasm, but not for time. You know, for example, that you can practice a good meditation level after course 6 sessions. It requires years of practice. So it is similar for obtaining information from what Krista say, the source. But the source is not only a sort of inanimate, say, cloud of information. And Krista correctly says, sometimes recognize the source who is giving me this information. Sometimes are these people, if I need this contact. Sometimes are external entities, so we can enlarge. But this is a very critical point. The external source that probably is the source of our basic intuition, enlightenments, and so on, are not inanimate, are sort of, let's say, how can you say?
You mean it's not
neutral?
It's not a data bank.
It's made of innumerable entities with different levels, different qualities. So it's not easy for people that particularly adapted for this kind of connection. I think that it's necessary good practice. So sometimes people can be overloaded by this, say, external information, and it's not a healthy situation. So for people, for example, that practice channeling, this is another form of mediumship, but not with deceased people, but with other entities, spiritual entities. It's necessary good training for trying to say control flux of information. Otherwise, it's possible to be overwhelmed be just by such a so we need a filter. This is other as humans, of course. Probably as we live in the afterworld, we I don't know. We say we can receive all information, but as a human, we need that. That's important. And our ability is to filter and try to use information that we need that are more useful for our, say, as a spiritual being.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting point, just saying that it's not, to avoid thinking about it as like a data bank, as like a kind of place where everything is just stored like a bunch of computer servers or something, but that actually it being animate and alive, which is very much what the guys were saying yesterday. Also Daz, when he was talking about his experience of extraterrestrial, both technologies and the beings and the clothing he said they all felt animate. They felt like they were alive, and that the actual extraterrestrials themselves kind of melded in some kind of organic relationship with the craft that they were directing as well. So interesting that you should also make that point, that we may think of a field as just a place where stuff is stored in a kind of rather cold way.
It's a living field.
Is that how you experience it, Krista? As
Very
well?
living.
Absolutely.
Full of entities, full of.
It's like we're blending with their energy, and I don't know whether you can even call it energy, but it's something that is animated and in the moment. It's very much present. And so when I do say a field of information, that does sound so sterile, it does sound like a data bank. It is very much present, and I don't know if you can say alive. I don't know what the word is that allows it to have to be animated in a way that isn't just like, okay, you're focusing attention here, it's animating now, and then it's not animated. It is always animated, all of it. And I agree with Patrizio that people can feel overwhelmed. Empaths tend to be very, very open, and we're walking in two worlds, essentially. Our minds allow us to exist in these dual realms. We're like a bridge, and you need to be able to close that off and live your life, the physical existence that we live. So it is a process of opening, and when you're ready, there are certain practices, artwork, music, things that allow you to release logical reasoning mind and open yourself to the field. Meditation is a wonderful practice. There are various ways that we can connect in this, what I would say is an alternate means of connecting, and it's only because we're not that familiar with it.
Yeah. Well, just before we bring Jim back in, the question I like to ask everyone is, so how is this work influencing the way you think about the nature of reality? So now, given both of your experiences, if like a kid shows up and says, what's the nature of reality? Tell me, Krista. How would you describe it? This world we kind of live in.
Yeah. I guess I would say it's just so much more than we can see, and it's so much more than we can know, and that our ability to commune with this wider expanse, as Jim said, with the birth of a baby, it's like these beings are wide open, and they're able to perceive their environment in just this way that is so expansive. And over time, it kind of closes down. And I think what we're experiencing now is needing to open it back up and into just a wider sphere of feeling and of information flow, of assistance, of compassion. Compassion is such a powerful concept because it's a word, but when we feel that, it genuinely feel it in our bodies and allow it to open ourselves, it is a mechanism of connection. And I guess that's where I would go with it's this source of compassionate feeling and thinking.
Lovely. So compassion, feeling with, literally, and interestingly, consciousness is knowing with.
Interesting.
Knowing with.
Yes.
Right? It's all about the with.
Yes.
Nice. Patrizia, what is your research? You know, when you kind of sit back in the evening with a glass of wine or whatever your favorite tipple is, and you contemplate everything you've learned during your research, you know, how do you make sense of this world we're in now?
I think that telepathy, but we mentioned other experiences, for example, spiritual, mystical experiences, experiences are telling us what the ancient mystical spiritual told us from millennia, that we are not isolated. Our experience, probably in the West, also in the East, our daily life experience is that we are isolated. We can communicate with others simply by using telecommunication in order to communicate with others. But what we experience now, it has no effect on others. What results from all this stuff, it is interconnected with all living entities, even animals. It is somebody suggest with the vegetable, with the vegetal environment. So, and we did discuss, for example, the possibility that we can change the what we call matter, but it's probably what we think about. For example, we did discuss about mind-matter interaction. This, for example, for healing purposes or for other. This is another demonstration that our mind, our identity, is not simply what we see, the body, the brain, and when the brain and the body end, because certain all living things that has sort of border, like my body, and we don't know when, but it is a certainty. And if this, we are, so there is no hope for a survival. For example, what we are discussing, for example, related to mediumship, suggests that there is a continuity of existence, our consciousness. You can use the term you prefer. It is confirm about the main religion in the spiritual tradition tell us that we are not finite living entity, but we live again, obviously not with this mask. probably without what this mask, this body required. For example, we must wash, clean our body. We need to feed our body. Probably in the other dimension, this is not necessary to have such a needs. But the message is very important for, let's say, trying to say. Have an interpretation of the meaning, what this life as a human means, what is the all this experience. If we consider that it's only a parenthesis that must last 20, 30, 100 years, but it's a parenthesis, and we continue in another dimension, and probably I don't know, it's curious to try again this experience as human. We didn't discuss about reincarnation, but it is another great topic to be discussed. So it enlarges the idea who we really are. We are not simply biological stuff or something that will be dominated by the modern AI technology. This is the real world. If we are machines, biological machines, it's clear that there is the possibility that artificial machine can pass us for their capacity to process information and so on. But if we say have the experience, even from an empirical point of view, that we are not machines and we are not only our brain, this changes radically the idea and the responsibility, because if we experience that we are all interconnected, it's not say neutral to act, to think for the well-being of all beings, or think and act for to dominate the other, to exploit the other, both human and the natural resources. This give us much more responsibility about what to all our experience, even our thinking, emotions. So we must be careful when we think, because the effects are not only on us, but in all angles of the world. It's another say implications of this change about our reality, our as human, but
Beautiful. Thank you, Patrizio. Yeah, and I think, you know, from what the evidence seems to be showing, we'll need to step into that expanded sense of who we are. If anyone from any other planet is going to kind of even dare to talk to us, or even we're going to have the ability to hear them or communicate with them. So, Jim, you want to come back in here, and any thoughts from the conversation, any connections you'd like to make to the UAP issues or related topics?
Oh boy, another great session, Peter. Thank you. Thank you, Patricio and Krista. Really important material. I'd like to start, Krista, with you. I was struck by your remark that after you had, you know, doing your dissertation, you thought it would be a good idea to study this. And then as you studied it, you realized you'd been doing it the whole time. And I think that's worth further illumination, because I think that's probably the experience of most people. We've been so repressed by the culture to believe it's either not true, or if we do believe it, like with UFOs, we're kind of crazy. That the process of unlearning that, one of the indicators that we're really unlearning is the realization that we've actually been doing it the whole time. Would love to have you talk more about that. So that what did you realize about your having this faculty the whole time? What did that mean?
I guess as a kid, there were a couple of things, mediums or psychic work, or Patricio probably has heard many of these terms, claircognizance, which is like a clear knowing. And that would happen to me often. I would just get a full understanding of a situation. And it was usually very specific, age specific. But like I would know neighbors were going to get a divorce. Nobody would even think that, like, and I don't know what it would be random like that. And precognitive, knowing that something was going to happen, I'd have a sense about it, and then recognize the presence of that happening in material reality. Dream precognition, things, having a dream that I'm meeting somebody, and then I meet them on the street. It's that sort of thing that would always happen, and I just paid attention to it. I recognized it. It was not honored in my family or my situation. That was not something that I learned. I was not to talk about it. And so that was the process for me of shutting down, because I got nervous. I got scared. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't in the open. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't nurtured. So for me, it definitely was a process of relearning, or not even relearning, of allowing. It was an allowance of this faculty to start to have more presence.
Beautifully put. Thank you. Thank you. And Patricio, I wanted to find out more from you about your experience as an academic at the university. Is this whole field, as you're experiencing it there in Italy, are people becoming more open to it, or are you continuing to experience real duress? I know Rupert Sheldrake quite well. We were at Cambridge together back in the 1970s, and he's been at this, for a very long time, and he has never been given an academic appointment because the universities are so embarrassed by what he's doing. As Peter was referencing when we were talking about the Princeton Engineering research project, one of the scientists says, even if you prove it, I won't believe it. And that's been Rupert's experience almost his whole life. And in fact, one of his TED Talks was actually taken down, as you may know, because he was talking about in some critical ways about the current scientific reductionist paradigm. So I'm just wondering, how are you doing in Italy? Are you okay?
No, there is no problem. If you demonstrate you are able to study by using the more adapted experimental techniques, there are a variety of experimental techniques. You can use quantitatively analysis, qualitatively analysis. There is a large luggage of instruments, but if you demonstrate you can study phenomena, okay? People, they say, asked about the interpretation, but he obtained, say, evidence of telepathy or clairvoyance of out-of-body experiences by using, say, shared science techniques. So, okay, at this point, one must refrain from criticizing. Somebody can say, I didn't spend any hours or €1 for this kind of investigation because the phenomena are quite strange and not compatible. Our idea about the world, about the physical laws and so on. But if you collect and after the pioneer work of Rupert 40 years ago and others, fathers, now we have a lot of supporting many I could say non-ordinary phenomena, and some you know that in academia most of people trying to they don't say defend their position. For example, if you need funds, economic funds for doing research, it's not easy to try, even from public funders. So, for example, in my department, many people were interested. I gave some lessons. There are many people, but at the end, I was the only one who pursued such a kind of investigation. So many people try to stay in the large way, say mainstream streets, and continue. In general, after the retirement, they are free to give all their energies to study phenomena that they were curious about in their young days. But I repeat that now, after more 40 years of empirical investigation, we have a lot of information. The can dismiss simply saying, these are not compatible with our world of view, generalism, a world of view about humans, biological, physical law. Because I repeat, there are a lot of information. For example, we cite mediumship. Mediumship, simply 20 years ago, something very difficult to study. Many people were not convinced that it's possible to study experimentally. Now we have a lot comparable with the past, very good empirical evidence supporting mediumship is a real phenomenon. We don't have discovered all. I think that science will not respond to all human questions, or definitely to all human questions, but many phenomena are considered paranormal, abnormal, are really normal if we change our view about our mind, our consciousness, how the world functions. Okay, it's a change of paradigm. Okay, for example, support the mainstream idea about consciousness is a product of our brain, our biology. Okay, our brain, in a strange way, at a certain moment, we feel the world with the taste, the colors. We see the world. Thinking, emotion, and so on. Okay, even we can reflect about our mind activity and so on and so on. Even experience, out-of-body experience, spiritual, are simply byproduct of some, say, strange interaction or of our brain cells. This is dominant paradigm. But the new paradigm, what we see apparently is strange, is the consciousness primary consciousness. We are part of individual parts of the universal consciousness. You can call it Brahma, God, Source, the One. Use whichever term you prefer. We are an expression, a small expression. Patrizio is a small expression of this unity, eternal, infinite unit without time. So you can imagine how here of the human and the we can obtain change in paradigm. Okay, and this is the great revolution we need for. Okay, as I said, many spiritual and spiritual and religious tradition, what I am saying from millennia, but probably many of us need other, let's say, proof. Okay, are not, let's say, satisfied with what the sacred texts are telling us. So they need other demonstrations or personal experiences, for example. Personal experiences are very good tools for changing. For example, I don't know if you discussed the near experience. Many of our experiencers change radically the fear of death. That is one of the main fear we have as human, because we aim to live forever. Okay, but such a kind of experience changes radically the idea of who we are, what is life, and so on. And I think that data demonstration are another, say, piece that can be used for trying to inform people that we are different from what usually we consider the world, we as humans, with all the complications, for example, that we have for interacting with the nature. We are destroying our nature. We are destroying self. It's incredible. We are still trying to defend our ideas, our fear by using words. That's one of the worst methods for solving conflicts. We are still using words. We are trying to use tools to kills people for demonstrating that we have the truth. Okay, so we are still in modern methods, but are ancient, inefficient for solving the main problems of our humanity. But if we change the idea, but not only conceptually, experiencing, okay? This is not something only intellectual change, it is a living change. I think that we can solve all the problem we are facing in the modern era.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very, very true. As back to Einstein, you know, the consciousness that produces the problem can't solve it. And part of what we're trying to do on Humanity Rising is to help people with this new consciousness. And that's why I love the title, Peter, that you've chosen on science and consciousness. It needs to be scientifically rigorous, but it also needs to be expansively inclusive. And that's why I love what you brought in earlier about consciousness actually meaning knowing with. That we're not isolated. We know with, as Krista, you were indicating, you know, with your various experiences and what Rupert was indicating with his, you know, research on something as simple as knowing who's calling you. It's the knowing is out there. So thank you both for this illumination today. And Peter, any final comments you would like to make, and then tee us up for tomorrow?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. No, just a big thank you to Patrizio and Krista for joining us, and for your generosity in sharing your slides and everything, Patrizio, and everything you put on your website, you know, freely available to people. That's wonderful. Yeah, tomorrow, Patrizio, you kind of referred to it. We're going to be focusing on intention. So actually the capacity to co-create it through these fields with each other. And we got some great guests tomorrow. Many of you may have heard of Lynn McTaggart, who will be joining us. And then Hans Anderweg, who over more than 20 years has developed a practice for applying intention and working in the energy fields of organizations and with large areas of land. And then Sujit Ravindran, who has developed the science of manifestation, as he calls it, and who's worked both in business and many other contexts, who's a wonderfully joyful being who I'm sure you'll enjoy being with tomorrow. So look forward to seeing many of you there. Same time, same place tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Peter. That's a very important aspect of consciousness. It's not only the capacity to know with, but the capacity to intend something in the field. So that'll be very exciting, particularly with Lynn McTaggart, who's done such extraordinary research and writing in this domain. So that brings us to a close for today, everyone. Krista, Patricio, Peter, thank you so much. You're all welcome to the after session chat group. You'll see the link in the chat box. You received the link in your Zoom reminder for those of you who are regular participants on Humanity Rising. And then we'll see you all here again tomorrow for consciousness and intention, which we need a lot of in our world today if we're going to save ourselves. All right. Thanks so much.